Hello everyone and welcome to my first arena gameplay. And today is Veterans Day and I want to tell you guys a story that's a little bit close to my heart. And I should warn you that the story may get a little graphic at times, but I don't want to pull any details because I think it's important to make the point I want to make. And you see, every country out there has a military, and every military has veterans. So, regardless of where you're from or where you're watching this video, there's a very good chance that you know a veteran. And the thing about being a veteran is that no matter what you do as a civilian, you really don't know what it's like to be in the military. And there's a few civilian jobs like the police or fire department, stuff like that, that really get those same type of experiences. But for the most part, when your veteran friends or family members come to try to confide in you and look for comfort in you, you really don't know how to respond. I find that a lot is people hear your stories and then they kind of just get a deer in the headlights look like, what am I supposed to say to this? I can't possibly relate. Do I just feign compassion and pretend like I have any clue what it's like to be in the situation that he was in or she was in? Or, how do I respond? So I decided to go ahead and make this video, and I want to tell a story about another veteran friend of mine that I think will act as a guide for people who find themselves in that situation, not knowing what to say or what they're really supposed to feel about what they just heard their veteran friend say to them. So without further ado, here it is, and there I was, how to talk to a veteran. So I was a medic in a hospital unit, and a hospital unit stands apart from all the other units in the military in the fact that it is the only type of unit where the medic is one of the most expendable people. Usually, the medic is one of the three most important members of the team, but in a hospital unit, you have so many medics, you're overstaffed, and they become very expendable. And when my company commander found out that I had worked for the post office before joining the military, he said, hey, we need somebody to run the mailroom. You're overqualified for it, so it's yours. So I got stuck running the mailroom in Iraq for the majority of the time that I was over there. And I had this friend who was a sanitation specialist, which is a nice way of saying he killed rats and emptied porta potties. And the thing is that when we got over there, we had already hired locals to do that stuff for us. We had locals that mopped the floors and they emptied the trash and they took care of the porta potties and they took care of the vermin and whatnot. But that meant that he was out of a job. And so they took him and said, you're completely useless where you are. We're going to put you in patient administration. The problem is that P.T.S.D was overstaffed as it was, and they really didn't need more than one or two people working the desk at a time, and they had like 6 people in their team. So he went from being expendable as a sanitation guy to being expendable as a pad guy. And so they went and they gave P.T.S.D an extra duty, and that duty was to clean up the dead bodies, the bodies of the people who didn't make it, and prepare them to be sent to their families. So he would take the medical screws out, he would take the catheters out, he would, clean up any dried blood, stuff like that, and make sure the bodies are as presentable as possible to the family members of the deceased. Now, if you've never handled a dead body before, it's kind of a surreal experience. Things that are supposed to be warm are now cold. Things that are supposed to be alive are now dead. And you can never really fake being dead. You're always going to have a little bit of tension in your muscles. You're always going to have a heartbeat. You're always going to have breath. But a dead body doesn't have any of those things. And it's very strange, especially when you're new to it. So a lot of people handle it in different ways. And this guy just happened to develop quite a bit of PTSD. He stopped sleeping, he stopped eating, and it really affected him in a big way. And after we got home from Iraq, we were walking through the woods, he and I. We just went on a little, one-day squirrel hunting trip down near Fort Campbell. And we were walking through the woods, just shooting the breeze, talking about nothing. And finally, he stopped walking all of a sudden, and he turned to me. And I stopped walking, turned to him, completely confused as to what was going on. And he started telling me a story about a day that he had in Iraq that kind of left my jaw open. And he said that one day there was an IED that went off in the middle of a group of people, not soldiers. I believe these were local people, but it still blew them up. And those people came into the hospital, but they didn't come in on stretchers or in body bags. Instead, they came in hazardous material bags, like just big, heavy trash bags. And the medics on the helicopter put these several bags, basically trash bags, on a stretcher, and they wheeled them into the ER. And of course, this guy being in PAD, it's his job to take care of the dead bodies. He got tasked with taking those bags into a clean room and opening them up and basically piecing the bodies back together because they had been completely dismembered. And so he opens up these bags and he's got torsos and arms and legs and heads and everything like that. And it's his job to put the pieces as close to in order as he can. And of course, not all the pieces are there. So he's looking at these things and he's like, okay, well, this is a girl's head, that's a girl's torso, those two probably go together. This arm kind of matches the skin tone of this torso, etc. And he's putting these bodies together as best he can. He said that by the time he was done, he had to throw away his uniform, boots and all, because he was just completely covered in blood. And that was the day that he stopped sleeping. And when he would sleep, he would have nightmares, and he stopped eating, and he got really depressed, and just PTSD hit him really hard. And it was just this horrific story. And I, of course, working in the mailroom, am thinking, like, I don't have any way of relating to this. I mean, I have no idea what to say here. And so when he finally stopped talking and he looked at me, and I could tell he was waiting for me to say something, and I really didn't know what to say, so I just said the first thing that came to my mind. And what I said was, yeah, man, I know exactly how you feel. There was this one time near Christmas where we got hit really hard with these letters, and we got like 3 bags of letter mail where we usually only get like 1 bag, and it was crazy, man. And so I'm sitting there trying to put these letters in the proper hole as best I can, and I've got this huge stack of letters in my left hand, and I'm throwing them with my right hand. And as I'm getting near the bottom of this stack of letters, I grab one and I go to throw it into the hole where it's supposed to go, but the edge of it catches my skin flap, and it slices right through my skin. That little flap between my thumb and my index finger cuts it really deep, like to the point where just a few seconds later there was a complete drop of blood that had formed and was running down my hand. And I'm just looking at it, trying not to gag, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, that liquid is supposed to be in my body right now, and instead it's outside my body. My body is literally inside out right now, and I was freaking out. And thankfully my medic training kicked in, and just instinctively I grabbed a paper towel and I started applying direct pressure to my wound, just trying so hard not to think about what was actually happening. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, it's a war injury, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Finally I managed to get the bleeding to stop, but the scar, just, the emotional scar of seeing my blood on the outside of my body, it just drove me crazy. And that night, if I hadn't fallen asleep, I wouldn't have been able to sleep all night just thinking about that wound that I had sustained. And when I had stopped talking, there was silence between us, and I was a little nervous, thinking, like, did I go a little too far here? I made light of his really horrific story by being sarcastic. Maybe I went too far. And finally he had started breaking down crying during his story, and he just got this huge grin on his face, just ear to ear, and he's wiping tears away, and he's laughing through his tears. It's kind of the laugh that you get when you're at the very tail end of a nervous breakdown. And he just starts laughing, and he throws his arms around me and gives me this big hug and says, "This is why I love the military. If you tell anybody else that story, your mom, your brother, your sister, your girlfriend, anybody else, that story, all you're going to get in return is Oh, I'm so sorry, honey. Are you okay? This is terrible that that had to happen to you. But you tell a soldier that story, and they're gonna give you this smart aleck, slap in the face, get over it response, and it's just exactly what I needed. I really appreciate it. And I came to realize that people know you, and don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to be a dick to your soldier friends. I'm not telling you to belittle their stories with ridiculous comments like mine. What I'm saying is be yourself. That your friends know you, your family knows you. If you're the kind of person who, like me, I'm kind of a sociopath. Things don't bother me like they bother other people, and my friends know that, which is why when they come to me, they know what they're going to get in response, and that's what they're looking for. Whether they realize it or not, that's what they're looking for. So if you're the kind of person who is, sarcastic, or you're the kind of person who's sympathetic, or you're a shoulder to cry on, or you're a slap in the face kind of person, be that. Because the person who's talking to you is talking to you for a reason, and they know who you are, and they know what your response is going to be, probably better than you do. And all I can say, again, is at the end of the video, my advice to you is just be you. Give the response that you would give. Don't overthink it, and don't try to be politically correct, and don't try to be something you're not. And this works with civilians too. I have another friend who recently went through a great deal of loss in his life. Over the last couple of years, he's lost his mother, his father, and most recently he lost his aunt to non-natural causes. So it was kind of a shock to everybody that it happened. And he went out of town for the funeral, and when he was driving back, he sent me a text, and all the text said was, "I hate cemeteries." And of course, I know what he means. I'm not dumb. I know he's not saying I hate graveyards. What he's saying is I hate having to watch someone close to me who holds a piece of my heart go into the ground, never to be seen again. I hate losing people forever. And like I said, he sent me this text that I hate cemeteries, and my response to him was simply, me too, I can't even watch Buffy anymore. And a few minutes later, I get a text from him that said, "You son of a bee, dot dot dot, thank you." And when I saw him later that night, he reiterated to me, like he explained, he wasn't being sarcastic with his thank you. He actually appreciated my response because that was exactly what he needed to hear. He needed someone to make light. He needed someone to cheer him up. And I was just thinking, like, of course it was. That's why you reached out to me instead of our friend Emily, who would have been the, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I know how you feel, it's so terrible" kind of friend. So, again, when somebody's facing something that you can't relate to, they're coming to you for a reason, so just be there for them. Be you, don't be fake, and just be there for them. So thanks for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and commentary. Again, it's Veterans Day. Show your support. Whether you agree with the war or you disagree with the war, the one thing that stands true is the veterans deserve your respect. They make a lot of sacrifices, they go through a lot of things, and they are facing stuff that you can't possibly understand. Reach out, let them know you care. Goodbye.